There is a very specific kind of suffering. It's not the sharp, loud sting of failure. It's not even the dull ache of being ignored or rejected. It's the suffering that arrives quietly, almost invisibly, right after you get exactly what you wanted. You worked for months, sometimes years. You sacrificed sleep, peace, relationships, your own health. You sold yourself a very specific lie. Once I get this, once I hit that number, touch that trophy, hear those words, I'll finally be able to exhale. I'll be whole. I'll finally be someone. And then you got it. The promotion, the income, the relationship, the degree, the milestone. Whatever it was, you reached out and finally touched it. And for a brief moment, maybe a few hours, maybe a day if you were lucky, something did shift. There was this rush of relief, a small, warm wave of satisfaction. You could finally breathe. You looked in the mirror and thought, we did it. But then the air in the room changed. The emptiness didn't come back with a bang. It didn't crash through the door. It was more like a slow, pathetic leak. Like a tire that looks perfectly fine, but is quietly deflating while you sleep. You woke up on Tuesday after your biggest achievement and felt that same nagging hollowness sitting right in the center of your chest. The same restless twitch in your hands. That same low, vibrating hum of, is this really it? And now you're not just empty, you're terrified. Because logically, you have everything you were chasing. You're holding the prize, but your heart is still acting like a beggar. And here is the part that actually breaks you. You can't even talk about it. How do you complain about winning? From the outside, you look like a success. People are literally applauding you. They're envying you. They're telling you how lucky you are. And every time you say, thank you, you feel like a fraud. A quiet, exhausted disappointment settles into your bones. Not because of the achievement, but because of the betrayal of the feeling itself. You realized that arrival doesn't actually feel like arriving. It just feels like standing in a slightly more expensive version of your own skin. This is the problem I want to talk about today. Not the struggle, but the strange, disorienting grief that follows getting exactly what you asked for. If you want to support us, then give me a coffee. Link is in the description. Your small support can help us to grow and motivate us to do work hard. We need to talk about why it happens. Because until you understand the why, you're going to spend the rest of your life sprinting toward a horizon that doesn't exist. You'll keep chasing the next thing, hoping the next version of success will finally be the one that fixes you. It won't. Not because you're broken, but because you've been lied to about what enough actually feels like. Let me explain what is actually happening inside you. And I want to be very precise about this, because this isn't just mindset, it's your history. The emptiness you feel after you win, it isn't a character flaw. It isn't ingratitude. You aren't some broken, too ambitious machine that's never satisfied. It is the ghost of a version of you that was never told they were enough just for existing. This pattern was installed in you long before you had the words to fight back. Think back all those tiny, quiet moments from when you were small. No one sat you down and said, your value is a transaction. They didn't have to. You felt it in the atmosphere. You felt the warmth of the room go up when you brought home the A or the trophy. And you felt that terrifying, subtle chill, the withdrawal of attention when you failed. Your child brain did the only logical thing it could. It survived. It drew a map that said, I am safe when I produce. I am invisible when I don't. This isn't a belief you hold. It's a reflex. It's the way your heart beats when you're under pressure. The great substitution. When your worth is tied to the finish line, your desire stops being about the thing itself. It becomes a desperate hunt for a feeling you're starving for. You didn't actually want the promotion. You wanted the feeling of finally being seen by people who ignored you. You didn't want the money. You wanted the screaming anxiety in your chest to finally shut up. You weren't chasing a title. You were chasing a hiding place. You thought that if you reached a certain height, the judgment of the world and yourself couldn't reach you anymore. But here is the cold, physical truth. An external trophy cannot heal an internal wound. The biology of the letdown. This isn't just a spiritual problem. Your nervous system is literally wired to betray your expectations of permanent happiness. When you hit that goal, your brain gives you a hit of dopamine, a frantic, beautiful spark of yes. But your brain is a survival organ, not a happiness organ. It's designed to keep you moving, not to let you rest. It forces you back to baseline. It's called hedonic adaptation, but it feels like a robbery. It's why the lottery winner eventually stares at their bank account with the same blank expression they had a year ago. It's why you can stand on top of the mountain you spent years climbing and feel nothing but the wind. Your brain doesn't hold on to peaks. It recalibrates to the valley. So what happens after you achieve something isn't a mystery. It's a crash. The dopamine evaporates, leaving you standing there with the thing in your hand, but the same old restlessness in your gut. And because you don't have a new target to distract you, the hollowness becomes loud. It feels heavy. It feels like you've been tricked. And then this is the tragedy of it. Your mind does the only thing it knows how to do to stop the pain. It points at a bigger mountain. It whispers, that wasn't it, because it wasn't enough. The next one, the harder one, that's where the peace is. And like a tired runner who doesn't know the race is over, you start to lace up your shoes again. And so you lace up your shoes and you start climbing again. But if you're being honest with yourself, truly, painfully honest in the middle of the night, you're not even sure you want the next thing. You're just terrified of what happens if you stop. The act of chasing has become your anesthesia. It's a numbing mechanism. You aren't running toward a dream anymore. You are sprinting away from the suffocating silence that forces you to actually feel your own life. This is the cycle. It's a ghost story we tell ourselves. Emptiness, a frantic new desire, the hunt, the win, that pathetic, flickering relief, the emptiness again. It repeats for years. It swallows entire lifetimes. And it's not because you're greedy or ungrateful. It's because no one ever sat you down and told you that the hollowness wasn't a hole you were supposed to fill with trophies. It was a signal that you've confused who you are with what you can do for the world. The identity trap. Let's go deeper into the basement of this. This isn't just about goals. It's about the fact that you have built your entire soul out of glass and called it a resume. When your worth is tied to the score, you don't just have a job or a title. You become it. You become the bank balance. You become the relationship status. You become the shape of your own body in the mirror. And that makes you the most fragile person in the room. Because if the market shifts, or the relationship ends, or the recognition stops, you don't just lose a thing. You lose the ground beneath your feet. You look in the mirror and you don't see a human being. You see a failed project. That is why this emptiness feels so existential. It's not just I'm bored or I'm dissatisfied. It's the haunting realization, I have no idea who I am if I'm not winning. The engine room. That isn't ambition. That's an identity crisis wearing a suit and a tie. The reason most people spend their whole lives starving is because they keep trying to eat the menu instead of the meal. They look for the solution in the same place the wound was created, out there. They think a better goal or a bigger dream will finally be the one to stick. But you cannot fix an internal fracture with external gold. The solution isn't out there. It starts with the grueling, uncomfortable work of walking into the engine room of your own mind and looking at the machinery. It starts with the terrifying act of standing still, letting the emptiness wash over you, and realizing that you are still here even when you have nothing to show for it. Now, I want to look you in the eye. I've said this before, and I need you to actually hear it this time, not just hear the words. You have a right to your labor, but you have no claim to the harvest. Most people hear that and they recoil. They think it's a call to be passive, to stop caring, to let the world pass them by. It's not. It's a warning about disappearance. When you psychologically fuse who you are with the outcome of what you do, you stop existing in the present. You aren't here doing the work. You're a ghost haunting a future moment that hasn't happened yet. You're using the now, this breath, this effort, this conversation as a disposable bridge to get to a then. And this creates a sickening internal distortion. You are always arriving. And because you are always arriving, you never actually are anywhere. This is the real reason the emptiness swallows you after you win. It's because you weren't actually there for the journey. You were in a relationship with a fantasy of how the trophy would make you feel. When the result finally lands in your lap, the fantasy vanishes. The smoke clears. And you're left standing in a present moment you never learned how to live in. You're like a traveler who spent the whole trip looking at a map and forgot to look at the ocean. Of course, it feels hollow. You weren't there to fill it. Let's talk about desire. Desire isn't your enemy. It's just the wind. The problem isn't that you want things. It's the shame-driven belief underneath the wanting. That voice that whispers, I am a half-finished person right now, and this next win will finally complete me. That belief turns every goal into a survival mission. When you operate from that lack, every no feels like a death sentence. Every delay feels like an insult. Every success feels like a temporary stay of execution. Because no amount of external yes can ever quiet an internal I'm not enough. The power of being untouchable. I want to be clear about detachment. It isn't coldness. It isn't being a robot. It's the refusal to let your psychological survival be held hostage by a result you can't fully control. You can work with every cell in your body. You can sweat, you can bleed for what you build. You can pursue excellence until your lungs burn. But the second you tell yourself, if this doesn't work, I am nothing, You've stopped being a creator and started being a slave. You aren't choosing anymore. You're being hunted by your own fear. And fear-driven effort is a dead end, every single time. If you fail, you're destroyed. If you succeed, you're empty. If what I just described, that cycle of chasing, achieving, and still feeling empty, if that is something you recognize in yourself, not from a place of pain, but from a place of honest observation, leave a comment below. I see this. Nothing more, just an acknowledgement that you are noticing the pattern. Now, let me show you exactly where this pattern operates in your everyday life, because it is easy to understand this. I'm not going to sit here and throw empty phrases at you like, just be present, or just let go. I know those words feel like sandpaper when you're actually suffering. They mean nothing until the ground beneath them is solid. Instead, I want to point you towards something much more intimate. I don't want you to do anything. I want you to notice. Because change, the kind that actually sticks to your bones, doesn't come from white-knuckling a new behavior. It comes from the quiet, almost boring act of watching your old ghosts while they're still in the room. The shift from fire to fever. First, I want you to feel the exact moment when a want turns into a need. There is a massive physical difference between wanting something because it excites you like a spark of genuine curiosity, and wanting something because you're terrified of who you'd be without it. The first one feels light. It's open. It's play. The second one? It's tight. It's a clenching in your jaw. It's a cold urgency in your gut that feels like a survival alarm. You don't have to kill that desperate wanting. You just have to start labeling it. Because the moment you look at that tightness and say, oh, there's that fear of being nothing again, it loses its power. It's no longer a fact of your life. It's just a noise your mind is making because it's scared. You aren't fighting the desire anymore. You're comforting the fear behind it. The sacred 3 seconds. Second, I want you to pay a ridiculous amount of attention to what happens in your body the very second you hit a goal. Before your mind starts its "what's next" lecture, before the "that wasn't enough" narrative starts playing, there is a tiny, fragile window. It's a heartbeat where your shoulders actually drop, a split second where your breath finally reaches the bottom of your lungs, a softening. That moment is proof. It shows you that your nervous system actually does know how to be at peace. It's still in there, buried under all that conditioning. The problem is that your brain is trained to trample that moment within seconds. If you can start to catch those 3 seconds, if you can just sit in that softening and say, this is it. This is the feeling I was actually chasing. You create a gap, a small, holy space between the achievement and the addiction. That gap is where you start to become a person again. The only arrival that matters. You don't need a new mountain. You don't need a bigger house or a deeper love to be complete. You just need to stop letting your mind convince you that you're a problem to be solved. The cycle breaks when you realize that the emptiness isn't an enemy to be filled. It's just the space where you are supposed to be. And the second you stop running away from it, you'll realize it wasn't empty at all. It was just waiting for you to come home.